Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my first update on my experience with this particular build of the Lenovo Legion 7. Now in the past I covered one that sported an RTX 3060. This, on the other hand, has the top of the line 3080 max power, 16 gigs of VRAM, a true monster inside what is an incredibly well-made chassis, beautiful display. We've got an AMD Ryzen 5900H X8 core CPU powering the experience, complemented by 32 gigs of RAM, a 1TB NVMe SSD, and then of course that max power 3080 GPU. So this is essentially just about a workstation at roughly $3,000 US. That is the retail price. I'll include a link in the description if you're interested. And quite frankly, if you've got the budget, you should be, because not only does it have best-in-class internals and build quality, but it's 16-inch, 1600p, HDR capable, 500 nit display with a 165 Hz refresh rate, and a 16:10 aspect ratio is one of the best on the market here in 2021. In fact, even though there are a lot of other machines I like, I don't think you'll find a better display on a gaming laptop here in 2021. So let's take a look and a listen to some 4K content. Brightness is not at 100% because frankly it would blow out everything. Here we go. Speakers aren't bad either. Not the best, but I would say they're good enough. And you're probably already noticing we've got letterboxing on the top and bottom. That's because we have a 16:10 aspect ratio. It is a little bit taller than a 16:9, which this content is native 16:9. And just to show you what it looks like to take the brightness all the way up, let's just do it. Oh, that was all the way down. We may as well see that. Let's go all the way up. And now you're going to see at 100% brightness, things are going to be a little bit blown out, to say the least. But to my eye, they look excellent. And maybe to yours they will too. But there's the blowout. Now if I take the brightness down to about there, a little under 50%, just as excellent. At least on camera, of course. I think that's enough, and it really does give you a good example as far as what this machine is capable of when it comes to content consumption. You're going to have a great experience on it, especially if you have anything that does support HDR, not just gaming, but media consumption as well. Let's talk about performance. First and foremost, let's get into TimeSpy. This consistently benchmarks a little under 12,000, which for a max power 3080 is what I expect. Similar performance to what I just demoed with the Main Gear Vector Pro, which is an Intel reference design. We're seeing very similar benchmarks here. Granted, I was able to get a little over 12,000, but that was with overclocking. That just isn't part of the game here with the Legion 7. And when it comes to real-world performance difference, negligible at best. So great performance here. When it comes to gaming so far, I've tested Battlefield 2042, Rust, and Call of Duty World War II. And one of the beautiful things about having the 3080 with this gorgeous 1600p high refresh panel is that you can max everything out, and it's a marriage made in heaven. Now, if you have a 3070 or a 3060 in this build, you won't always be able to do that clearly. And in fact, in most cases, with the 3060, it's not going to ever happen. And with the 3070, it's on a case-by-case basis because, the 3070 is a real sweet spot, I would say, overall. But if you must have the highest frame rate capable and basically ultra everything, the 3080 in this capacity, again, max power with the 16 gigs of VRAM, it's the way to go. No question about it. Whether or not it's the way to go when it comes to actual performance for price, that's a whole nother discussion. When it comes to the NVMe drive that comes stock, it performs very well. Remember, this is Gen 3. Only Intel 11th Gen systems support Gen 4, so that's just part of going with AMD. But on the flip side, you will have power delivery, which is a great thing. I'll get to that in a moment. But the benchmarks here, exactly what I would expect from a top-tier Gen 3 1TB NVMe drive. You do have a second slot in here. Maybe in another video I'll cover, tearing it down and upgrading it. Maybe I'll bump it up to 64 gigs of RAM. we'll see. It all depends really on all of your interest in this machine. But what I can tell you is that this is one of the best gaming laptops here in 2021, as long as you understand battery life, again, is not going to be its strong suit. Another thing, personally, that I wish it had that it doesn't is a SD card reader, but easily remedied because it has so many Type-C ports that you're really not going to have a problem connecting a card reader. But it is something else that could have been built in and simply isn't there. Now, the keyboard experience is very good, as is the touchpad. It is excellent. It's really more than I could ask for. When it comes to the keyboard, personally, I am a little bit more partial to the HP Omen keyboard than Lenovo's Legion, but we are getting a numerical keypad, and I think that kind of pushes this one over the edge. I want to be clear, I don't dislike this keyboard. I just have a personal preference for what HP is doing with the Omen keyboard. You know, you've got the smile style keys here. With the Omen, you've got more of a chiclet keyboard. So it's really a matter of personal preference. But again, it is critical, in my opinion, to have that numerical keypad, and I would like to have it. So for those of you wondering whether or not I would pick this over the Omen 17, I would probably go with this, but that doesn't mean that the Omen 17 is in any way bad. It's just the display here is better than what HP currently has to offer in their lineup. So if you care about having this 1600p 16 by 10 aspect ratio at 165 Hertz with its 500 nits of brightness, the Legion 7 is the way to go. Now, moving away from this, and by the way, when it comes to Gen 3 versus Gen 4, you know, whether or not games or software is even going to take advantage of Gen 4 is a whole nother topic, because most do not. So while it's really nice to have Gen 4 support, and it will give you best-in-class performance, software support is still lacking, so don't feel like if you go with Gen 3, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, it's hard for most software to still, at this point, take advantage of those Gen 3 speeds that you're looking at right there. So do not fear if you decide to go Gen 3 with AMD. That rhymed, did not mean to. Now, I've already mentioned gaming is excellent. If you want to do video editing, 4K video editing that is, or still image editing, you're also going to do really well here. This is workstation class computing power between that 8-core CPU and that max power GPU. So don't hesitate. Don't wonder if this can handle it. Anything you throw at it, this is going to be able to handle. Now, under load, the fans will spin up. They will get loud. You will also have to switch the refresh rate manually, unlike my Asus G15 where it automatically switches once you come off of power. Here, if you want to save some battery life, you're going to have to do that yourselves. There is a quick shortcut, but just something you need to be aware of. I'll probably get into that more in the full review. Also, a quick look at Lenovo's, Lenovo's software. You know, essentially here you're monitoring CPU, GPU usage, the VRAM, your SSD, network boost. They give you some switches, hybrid mode, overdrive, touchpad lock, access to their system update software, X-Rite color assistant, because this is fairly good, if not one of, again, the best displays when it comes to color accuracy out there on the market in a gaming laptop right now. And, you know, essentially Lenovo does give you fairly decent, you know, overall control of the system. Again, not going to dive too deep here. And then, of course, when it comes to the RGB, you have IQ, which is both a blessing and a curse. A curse in that there are some battery life issues associated with IQ that even with updates, still I don't see having been resolved. I'm not at a point where I can give you firm battery life yet, but it's still not where I wish it could be. Let's just put it that way. You know, when you use a machine like the Asus G15 and you're able to pull off 8 hours of battery life, when you disable the discrete GPU and go with the integrated, it makes you wish every single machine on here, on the planet, could do that. A mux switch helps, but it doesn't always end up netting tremendous battery life. So hopefully that's something that will change for the Legion 7, but I'll give you firm battery life in the full review. But when it comes to the RGB, really nice. And you know what? If you don't want it, if this isn't for you, having RGB everywhere, there's a really simple solution. Just turn it off. And the good news is that if you do turn it off, this does still end up looking like, I would say, a fairly sedate non-gaming machine. Yes, you have the Legion branding here, but outside of that, it doesn't scream gamer. I think it's just a really nice piece of hardware. Predominantly aluminum chassis here, or I should say metal. And then when it comes to I/O, one Type-C port right here, your headphone microphone combo jack. Other side of the machine, we've got your privacy switch for the webcam, as well as yet another Type-C port. And then when we come to the back of the machine, I really do like that these are all lit up when they're active. Of course, you can disable that, but then it's, you know, what's really here is the I/O. Ethernet, a Type-C port that does support power delivery. So if you're looking for that, which I think is a killer function on this, it means you don't always have to carry around the 300-watt brick. So, you know, in the instance that you know you don't need max performance, you can at least keep this thing going, something you cannot get out of 11th gen Intel machines. So that is yet another advantage for this over Intel. Two more Type A ports, HDMI 2.1 out, another Type A port, and then last but not least, the power port for charging this. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a beefy machine, really dense, not incredibly heavy, but certainly not light. It's a little under 6 pounds. And, you know, there you've got the glowing Y for the Legion brand. I just think it's a really sharp machine, and it's, you know, it exudes quality in just about every way. A little bit of Legion branding there on the lip. And for all of you gearheads who are worried about opening this with a single hand, of course, that's totally feasible, not an issue at all. So there's my update. Again, I think this is an excellent machine. Anyone who's considering buying this, I think this is an ideal configuration, at least here in 2021. You know, if you want Intel, you know you want Intel. If you want AMD, you got power delivery going for you. You're not going to suffer with either one, but this is an excellent build that I can easily recommend, even if you're not looking to do gaming, believe it or not, again, as a workstation, running Revit, AutoCAD, any sort of rendering that you might want to do. This is a phenomenal machine. It will get loud, but it will do everything, and it will do it well, and it will look good, and it has one of the best displays, again, here in 2021. I'll reemphasize that because I wish more manufacturers had this panel in tow right now. But that pretty much rounds things out. Excellent machine here, at least in terms of an update. You'll have final thoughts from me in the full review. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. By the way, thermals are good too. And besides posting any comments, please hit that like button and feel free to subscribe. And please stay safe. Later.